Welcome to the ROTC Scholarship Podcast, hosted by former Army ROTC Professor of Military Science, Lieutenant Colonel Retired Rob Kirkland. In these episodes, we explore how to best prepare yourself to obtain one of these valuable scholarships for those applicants who wish to attend a college or university and become officers in the military. The application process can be complex and confusing. This podcast works to make it more understandable. And now, the ROTC Scholarship Podcast. Hi, welcome back to the podcast here. And today we're going to talk here about majors and the ROTC scholarship. And the determination of major is a very important consideration in the receipt of the scholarship. In other words, the probability that you will receive a scholarship, keeping that major that you agree to when you accept the scholarship is the determiner in keeping the scholarship until you commission as an officer in the military. And finally, when you make the decision to branch or to get a specialty within your service of choice, oftentimes the major will be a determining factor in whether or not you receive that particular specialty or not in the military. So the determination and your choice of a major when you apply for the ROTC scholarship is really important. And so what I wanted to do today with you is kind of talk about the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Navy Marine Corps and nursing scholarships, and kind of talk about the major and kind of how that works and the chances of getting a scholarship, and if you list certain majors and maybe some, what we call tactics, techniques, and procedures in order to, get that scholarship and be successful. So, I'll sort of go ahead and take it first. And first of all, talk about Air Force ROTC and then proceed with Navy and then go on to Army at that point. So let's first of all talk about Air Force ROTC. So Air Force ROTC obviously puts a large emphasis on technical majors. So they call them highly desired majors, and about 80% of all scholarship offers for Air Force ROTC are these technical majors. And so these majors really are anything with engineering, aeronautical engineering, aerospace engineering, architectural engineering. Almost all of the engineerings are kind of part of this list for Air Force ROTC. And included also in this kind of highly desired majors are what we call kind of science and technical majors, such as architecture, chemistry, mathematics, meteorological atmospheric science, operations research, and nuclear physics and physics. So 80% of all Air Force ROTC scholarships are in these majors. And so where do the other 20% come from? The other 20% are either a strategic language major, which could be probably anywhere up to 10% of the remaining allocation. And that list you can find on the Air Force ROTC website, and I'll include the link in the podcast, as well as what we would call designating general studies. So if you don't designate one of these technical majors, you'll put down general studies. And if you are awarded a scholarship and you list general studies for Air Force ROTC, that gives you the opportunity to be able to take any major within the college or university that you decide to do Air Force ROTC at. So you can do engineering if you want. If you get awarded a scholarship on the general studies major, or you can take history or any other type major that you want, and you'll be able to keep your scholarship. So what happens if you go in and you say get a scholarship for aeronautical engineering, and you decide to that you want to change majors? Remember that in Air Force ROTC, your scholarship is based on the major that you designate for the when you apply for the scholarship. So if you change your major, generally, if you change the major within these highly desired degrees, you probably can change, although you need to make sure that you have the permission of your aerospace professor of aerospace science, that will the lieutenant colonel or colonel that runs the program at your college or university. Army ROTC program needs to make that approval. If you decide to change a major outside of the highly desired majors, or whatever major you've been given the scholarship to, generally your scholarship will be taken away. And so that's, I think, in my mind, a significant consideration as you go into and accept this scholarship. That's why for Air Force, and I'll talk a second about the Navy, that's why they put a high premium on your SAT math or ACT math science, because what it's been shown, at least in the minds of Air Force and Navy, is that getting a high SAT score or a high ACT math score indicates your ability to succeed and to successfully complete an engineering or STEM type major. And so that's the reason why they put such a high premium on getting those good SAT math scores. So, you need to think about this as you kind of designate that major, is that, how good are you at math? How good are you at science? Do you think that you'll be able to take 4 to 5 semesters of calculus? Do you believe you'll be able to complete college physics, college chemistry, a very strong engineering curriculum? And so you need to really think about that, before you go into and accept the scholarship, because if you start running into problems with multivariable calculus or some other engineering course, and you have to, or you decide that you want to change majors, you're going to lose your scholarship, and that can obviously be a significant event, and financial impact on you. So you need to consider that kind of as you start making those decisions about your major. Okay, so let's talk next about Navy. And Navy ROTC is very similar to Air Force, and they have what's known as a Tier 1 and Tier 2 academic major. So approximately 85% of Navy option, Navy ROTC scholarships will be awarded to students interested in completing a Tier 1 and a Tier 2. So Tier 1 is mainly engineering courses, but in particular, highly desired engineering and courses. So I'll read them off to you: aerospace, aeronautical, astronautical engineering, chemical engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, naval architecture and naval marine engineering, nuclear engineering, ocean engineering, and systems engineering. So that's Tier 1. And Tier 2 is basically STEM and other engineering courses. So very similar to kind of what the majors that you would see with the Air Force in their kind of highly technical majors. And so again, with Navy ROTC, the scholarship is based upon the major that you designate, and you're staying in that major and not changing majors. You can't change majors without the permission of Navy ROTC. And you change majors outside of these kind of Tier 1 or Tier 2 majors, and you will most likely lose your scholarship. Getting a high score on your math SAT. The average score for math is around 700 SAT math. And it's difficult, in my experience, to get this scholarship if you don't have around a 700 or over a 700 math score. So again, with Navy ROTC, you need to think about your ability to be able to complete an engineering degree or a hard science degree, and and whether or not you'd be comfortable in doing that. Let's talk next about Navy ROTC Marine Corps option. So with Navy ROTC Marine Corps option, you can be a general studies major. You don't have to be a technical major to get the Marine Corps scholarship. So in that case, it's a good option if you're not as interested in, if you're not interested in doing a technical major. The Marine Corps, you could be a business major, a history major, and that doesn't prejudice you in getting a scholarship. The Army is the same way. The Army does not put a high emphasis on these kind of technical majors that the Air Force and Navy do in order to get the scholarship. Now, you can put down history, you can put down English or others type of majors, and that should not prejudice you in getting a ROTC scholarship based on my experience. Now, I've heard and understand that perhaps if you do put engineering or physical science analytical on the board, that may help in the board score. In other words, the score that you get as you're looked at by the ROTC board, there may be maybe a few additional points that you get on in consideration if you do put an engineering or physical science major as your designating an Army ROTC, although that does not seem to be at least the official published policy. So that may be a consideration. And then the other thing is Army ROTC has at least not indicated that they're going to hold anybody to that major if they decide to change majors. So if you, on the scholarship application, put down you want to do, say, chemical engineering, and you change your major to, say, English, there's no indication that I can see that Army ROTC would take your scholarship away if you make the decision to change your major. So just some kind of considerations there. So you see, Army ROTC and Marine Corps are very similar in giving you that kind of wide latitude and flexibility to choose a major that is outside of kind of the technical majors. So let's talk about some other considerations here. So another one is I had talked about earlier is language, or what we call strategic language majors. So for the Air Force and Navy, they have certain set-asides for strategic languages, and these languages are like Middle Eastern languages, Far East majors. Those languages are listed on both the Air Force and Navy ROTC sites. The Air Force, although not officially published, sets aside perhaps up to 5 to 10% of their scholarships for people that designate a strategic language as the major. And the Navy could be upwards of 5%, although I think that number, both the number for the Air Force and Navy, may vary between anywhere from 3 to 10% of their scholarships are set aside for language scholarships. So if you want to major in a strategic language, that may give you some benefit over just saying general studies or some other major outside of the highly desired or tier 1 and tier 2 majors for Navy, for Air Force ROTC or Navy ROTC. So some other considerations are, for example, medical school or law school, or a specific major that you want to do when you graduate from ROTC. A number of ROTC scholarship graduates go on to medical school or go on to law school. And I've done a couple of podcasts that talk about kind of the route you would take for both medical school and law school. So, for Army, for example, you can designate a pre-med or pre-law program, and that's fine because there's no prejudice in getting the scholarship if you do a pre-med major or a pre-law major. Now, for Air Force ROTC, for pre-med, you can't do a pre-med major and be in a highly desired major category. So one of the things that people do is they major in chemistry, which is a major that is part of the highly desired majors for Air Force. And then they go ahead and try to get as many of the prerequisites for medical school on their chemistry major. Or for both Air Force ROTC and to a lesser extent Navy ROTC, they compete for a general studies major. And then if they get the general studies major for either the Navy or the Air Force, then they can take the pre-med major or in case of law school, pre-law major. But they would need to compete in the non-technical or non-highly desired majors for both the Navy and the Air Force. Finally, let's talk about majors and military specialties. So and I'll talk about each of the services and what I know. The Army ROTC does give some additional points on their order of merit list to determine what branch specialty you get in the Army by if you take a STEM major, or engineering major, science, technical major, and you get some points additional if you have that major. For both Air Force and Navy, there are certain specialties within those services that you need to have a certain majors in order to be able to compete for those specialties within the Navy or Air Force. And even like, for example, within the Army, if you want to go into cyber, for example, if you have a obviously computer engineering or computer science degree, that can help you in getting cyber as a branch within the Army. So there are those, and then as well as in the Army, the engineer branch can help you if you're an engineering major. So one technique that I've seen candidates do, and I'll give you an example of one candidate that I've worked with over the past year that was interested in going to medical school. And he really wanted to go into the air. He really wanted to do Air Force, but was okay with the Army as a backup. So what he did was he competed for the Air Force ROTC scholarship and then the Army ROTC scholarship, and designated for the Air Force, he designated a general studies major. So rather than putting chemistry, he put down general studies. So he planned to do pre-med in college. And then for Army, he put down pre-med. So what happened was he competed and he got an Air Force ROTC Type 7 scholarship for general studies. So Type 7 is the scholarship that provides 4 years of in-state tuition scholarship or 3 years at $18,000 a year for the last 3 years. So he did an in-state and did a 4-year scholarship for general studies for pre-med, and he's going Air Force ROTC. And he also would have gotten an Army ROTC scholarship, most likely, that would have given him a 4-year Army ROTC scholarship for pre-med. But he decided to go Air Force ROTC and utilize the Type 7 scholarship in order to go to pre-med so that he could do medical school and then eventually become a doctor in the Air Force. So I think you need to ask yourself, overall, you need to ask yourself a couple of things here. I think the first is can you complete a technical major? I think that's the first thing, because the Air Force and the Navy, it's just tough if you don't decide to do that technical major. And so if you don't think you can get done with a technical major, then probably Army, ROTC, and Marine Corps is the way to go for you. But of course, you need to also decide what service you want to go into too. So that's obviously another as important consideration as your major. So it's kind of one of these things where you have to look clearly at your abilities, your strengths, what service you want to go into, and whether or not you're going to be able to get through a highly technical major in your college or university and succeed at that. And so there's obviously a lot to break down and a lot to consider here. But the major is obviously a very important consideration in getting the scholarship, in keeping the scholarship, and in some cases, getting the specialty that you want in the service of your choice. So hopefully this was a helpful podcast for you and in kind of looking at this important consideration, and look forward to joining you next time for another episode. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the ROTC Scholarship Podcast. If you like what we're doing, please leave a quick review. If you have any questions or want more information about ROTC or our consulting services, please visit our website at rotcconsulting.com. Take care, and we'll see you next time.